Hello, and welcome back to SoulHubFeels. Today, I really want to talk about parents with addiction problems. In this case, alcohol. That's the life that I kind of have. My dad was an alcoholic. My siblings definitely seen the worst end of that. But I'll get into my own experiences here in a second. First off, I really want to say, with alcohol, it can go many different ways. So my experience could be different than yours, but I do want you to know that there are people that can relate to you. So if you have a parent with an alcohol abuse problem, or a drug problem, whatever it may be, there are people that can relate to you out there. But in my case, dad is a hardcore alcoholic, and that's how he's been my entire life since day one of me being born. I've been told stories that I have no idea whether they are true or not, but of my sister leaning over me while he was drunk, hitting her. I don't know how true that is. This is when I was like baby, because I believe, if I remember right, I was like 1 or 2 when my mom finally had enough and left. So it's a lot, it's a lot to take on, and it can really mess you up. Now, luckily, like I said, was taken away at a young age, so my experience with it is a little different than I feel like most, because I wasn't around it as much as others. But let's see, when I was about 7, 8 years old, I remember there's a few visits with him, and I think that was really about it. I had a few visits, and then we moved 2 states away, and had just never, it kind of faded. Finally, fast forward, I graduate from high school, and I don't really think about it too much, because I didn't talk to him a whole lot, if ever. Got a lot of notes and stuff. Birthdays, maybe a Christmas card in there. Wanting me to come out to the farm and, work or whatever. Hang out. But he was never to be trusted, and I was going to have a sibling there with me in order to go. But, graduated high school, and I moved back, and now he lives about 45 minutes away from me currently. And I've went and seen him a couple of times in the last 5 years that I've lived here, or have been around this area. And I can still remember the first time I went and seen him, because I had a picture of us as a kid, and he's still, didn't look bad, but then you can he's only 2 years older than my mom, so he's 57 or 58, I believe. I can't remember. He's 2 or 3 years older than my mom. So 57, 58 years old. And I just remember looking at him and thinking, man, this guy looks like he's 70 to 75 years old. He looks like an old man. But I showed up and I stuck around because I froze up because he was already drinking. He was drunk before I got there. Tried to sneak beers in the bathroom while I was there. First time I'd seen him in over 10 years. And that just kind of blows my mind. Still hasn't learned. It really was kind of a good day in a sense with eating. I mean, he made steaks. You know, he's always very giving and attempts to forgive the past through, I feel like, giving stuff, which you can't buy that back. But I appreciate the effort at the same time. And another time, from then on, I only went out there if my sister was going out there because my brother wants nothing to do with him. And that's his choice. I can't knock him for it. Sister decides, she's going out there one weekend and we go fishing and it was a really great time and didn't drink and I was never been more proud. It was great. But the last time I think I seen him is when it was happening. A few months prior to me actually going and seeing him, we had a kind of a weird incident where I had to call the police and they had to go out and do a safety check on him or, you just, it's a hefty thing to deal with when someone calls you and they're talking about guns in a weird way that just doesn't seem right. It's unsettling and sad and crying and then anger and the emotions on his end were flying around. So it was just it felt like a dangerous situation that needed to be handled. And it did get handled. Last time I went out there though, I got a little curious and I was like, I did a little peeking around and I peeked into the garage. And I have never been more disgusted in how many cans were in that garage. The stench that rolled out of that garage of just beer, essentially. I mean, it'll probably forever be a smell that is like locked in my mind. It's I never have even thought about a traumatic smell, but that's really what it was. It was vile. Like, even talking about it just makes me want to throw up. It's disappointing having a parent like that. It really is. And then one of the worst parts about having a parent like this is, in my case anyways, could be yours too, the drunk calls happen so often when they shouldn't happen. The drunk phone calls from a parent. they can make you feel like shit. They can make you feel just awful. And there's the anger they can have, or the opposite, the sadness they can have, or it's very, very bipolar in my situation. It can go from happy to mad to sad to back to happy, and then crying, and well, most of the time it it just doesn't. It's hard. It's hard, and I feel for you, the viewer, if you have a parent like that. It does. It did have some positive effects on me, though. I I'm not gonna lie and say I don't drink or anything like that, because I'm a 25-year-old male. I have drinks, but I have never got blackout drunk, or like just like too far drunk to where I am too unreasonable, if that makes sense. That sounds like something an alcoholic says, for sure, but I watch my liquor very hard because I'm afraid to be that. I never want to grow into that. And if I ever have a wife and a kid, or kids, I don't want them to go through the same thing that I have, or what some of you may have gone through. That's pretty much my that's my relationship with my dad. That was a nervous laugh, by the way. That wasn't actually funny by any means. Nervous tick laugh. I'm sure a lot of you have something like that, but the reason I really wanted to make this video in the first place is last probably 2 years I have had a consistent talk, like voice in my head, sometimes being my dad's voice, saying, he don't have much time to live. I've heard 3 months before, I've heard a year, I've heard 6 months, I've heard not long. I just to the point of knowing he's throwing up shit and blood. It's hard to prepare yourself to lose a parent, even with everything they've done wrong. Still a parent. Still help define who I am today. So, it's what it is. But anyways, if you did like the video, go ahead and leave a like down below. Comment saying why. And subscribe if you've not yet done that. And I guess trying to think if I have anything else to say here. I don't know. SoulHubFeels. Feels intrigued today. Not intrigued. Feels sad today.